Right, hi ho everyone. Welcome again to AuthorStory. I'm Alexander Lim, your host. And for this episode, I'm interviewing Larry Smith, author of the book No Fears, No Excuses, What You Need to Know to Have a Great Career. And as early as now, you can go to the Amazon link below and check out his book. So Larry, welcome. It's good to have you here on AuthorStory.
It's my pleasure, Alex.
Cool, cool. So Larry, what's your story? I mean, how well, I know you're a professor in economics, right? How'd you become a professor?
When I went to grade school, I discovered I was home. Teaching is my passion,
Okay.
and I knew that by the time I was 10.
Oh.
So, like many people who are professors, I stayed in school for a long time.
Hmm.
But unlike some professors, I worked both for public and private companies, a large public company and the government of Canada.
Mm.
And then I went to the university.
Okay. So you sort of like you worked in a private company first before you became a professor.
That's correct. One of the largest retailers in the country. Oh, and I actually worked for two smaller companies as well. I wanted a range of experience before I returned to teaching.
Oh, nice. Interesting. Very interesting. So what pulled you into into economics? Sorry. What attracted you about economics?
I'm a farm child, so you see, economics is what you hear at the dinner table all the
Mm.
time.
Okay.
Your parents and grandparents talk about demand and supply and prices
Right.
rising and falling,
Right.
and of course, getting very annoyed when the prices fell. I
Yeah.
also am a techie, so when you're on a farm, you see the power of machinery to transform the nature of work,
Right.
to show how you can look after larger crops, more animals, with the power of technology. So, from my perspective, economics was like very natural to me. This
Mm-hmm.
idea of how marketplaces work and how they interact with technology
Right. Oh.
was just very interesting to me.
All right, cool. I got that. Very interesting. Cool. All right. So essentially, I mean, all this started with your TEDx talk on, on career and stuff like that, how to create a successful career. Now, your TEDx talk has millions of views, and hopefully there'll be someone out there who would, take your words to heart, find their passion, and get a successful career. How did you get on TEDx in the first place? I mean, you're an economics professor, not a career guidance counselor, and the topic was more along career guidance rather than economics.
Oh, well, I differ with you, Alex. I'm a specialist in labor markets, so of course I should know
Oh,
about careers.
okay, okay.
Second, Secondly, as part of my work at the university, because I've been doing career counseling, I've been doing career counseling since I began teaching. I was career counseling in the second term I was at the university
Okay.
because of my interest in the labor markets.
Hmm.
So I've always been interested in this area. I have now counseled thousands of students over my 30-year teaching career. So
Okay.
I've been immersed in career counseling from the very first days. So I ended up on the TED Talk because, of course, one of my former students, Prashant, was organizing the first TEDx conference at the University of Waterloo.
Okay.
Asked me to be a speaker because I have a profile at the university.
Uh-huh.
I teach large classes. A lot of students know me, and I decided what I would do in that 15-minute talk was list every frustration I'd had with decades worth of conversations with students. So it's why
Right.
the TEDx title is why you will fail to have a great career, because I've listened to many people use excuses
Right.
to themselves from doing what they needed to do.
Uh-huh.
So I took all of those 30 years worth of frustrations and downloaded them into 15 minutes. And to my quite horror, millions of people listened
Right,
and
right.
wrote emails to me. The book arose from the fact that I, in fact, was writing the book anyway because I was responding to the email
Mm-hmm.
and that came from around the world. And Alex, it was clear an enormous number of people struggle with career decisions, more than I had
Right,
even
right,
pessimistically imagined.
right. Okay. So around the world then. So I mean the reaction is around the world. So this thing's not just, local to Canada. I mean, it seems you struck a note. You really struck a note with your talk.
Well, it appears so because the mail came from every major country on the planet, literally. And then many smaller countries that I've never heard of. I mean, there was an email, and they continue to come because the TED video continues to attract a high viewership. I had two messages, one within the last 2 days, one from Romania and
Mm-hmm.
one from Nepal. Those are
Mm-hmm.
not particularly large countries, and Nepal is in the middle of, well, the middle of the Himalayas, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and from India and from European countries and from all over the United States, from Australia, from the Middle East, sorry, from Southeast Asia as well.
Right, right.
So it was clear that this is a matter of great concern. It's why the book is being published in 5 different languages.
Hmm.
So it's available for the entire English-speaking world, and also in Spanish, Portuguese for Brazil, Korean, and Chinese.
Right,
So that just gives you the sense of how universal this problem is.
right. And it's interesting because I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure like a lot of people who try to guide, these kids into good careers. I mean, I'm sure they came up with at least some of these excuses, but they've never really like put it out there and enumerated them the way you did.
I'm a fan of plain speaking. I don't like, at all, I don't like, where you merely encourage someone without telling them the full truth about the obstacles they're going to face.
Hmm.
I want to encourage young people to have great careers. I want to encourage older workers who need to change to have great careers. If it's a second one, fine. I hope the second one is going to be great,
Right.
and the content of the book applies. But you need to tell people the truth. I want to encourage people, but I don't see how you encourage them by making light of the obstacles they face. So if you're making excuses, you will not have a great career. You've
Right.
got to stop doing that, or nothing else I'm saying to you would possibly be of any benefit.
Right.
If you're too frightened to try something even a little different, your chance of having a great career disappears to almost zero.
Hmm.
Those are the truth. I'm not a cheerleader, and I don't like, and I've read books that just tell people to have faith in themselves. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but that's not enough. You can have faith in yourself and then be too disorganized to do real research. You're still going to fail to have a great career because you have not applied your energy. You may be committed, you may be encouraged, but you don't know how to actually do it. And then the TED thing, and this is what I developed in the a dialogue I was having with the people who watched it.
Right.
They kept this fantasy belief that I had said all they needed was passion. I most certainly did not. Passion is an essential attribute for a great career, but it is not enough. It's necessary but not sufficient.
Right.
And you need to tell people you've got to do other things. You can't just say I really really want to do this, and like magic all the barriers are going to collapse. They will not.
Hmm.
They will not.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, it does come through definitely. I mean, you call it as it is. You call a spade a spade, and that occurs to me as being rather different from just cheerleading a new guy on.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it unfortunately seems to be unusual. Truth is, I had no need to write this book. Students have been asking me to recommend good books to help them with their career
Hmm.
while we're having these counseling sessions over the past decades, well before the TED
Right.
talk. And I couldn't find a book I could recommend in good conscience
Hmm. Okay.
because they were either wildly incomplete. They would say one or two useful things.
Right.
They would say, for example, a career book that talks about marketing yourself. That's
Okay.
a good idea, but never told the reader what you were supposed to market beside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Market your experience, and they would give you hints for how to network. But what is the purpose of the networking?
Right. Right.
Like you would probe. It was either all cheerleading or it was incomplete advice. I tried to draw on complete advice. Now, the other thing I have to say, Alex, because it is important. I wouldn't trust myself if I was just making this up out of my head, thinking it was, oh, I don't know, logical or something.
Right. Right.
The book is based on the examples of the great careers my students have had, and the disasters that some of them have also had.
Hmm.
So My problem was I had too many examples. I have hundreds of them. You can't have hundreds in the book. There's a
Right.
large number in the book because I think that is the credibility.
Right.
As is on the cover of the book, there are comments from my former students working for such companies as Bloomberg, Disney,
Right.
Tesla Motors, Facebook, Amazon,
Right.
Google. The range of what my students have been up to, and many of them, I am privileged to say, have shared their career stories with me. So
Right.
I could draw on that. So there's real content. This is tested guidance, not made up out of my head because I had an impulse one day.
Right.
This is experience of a large number of men and women. Of course, Alex, part of the advantage I have at the University of Waterloo is that we have the world's largest co-op program,
Hmm.
which means we place well more than 15,000 students a year in paid employment,
Okay.
degree related, in all the principal companies of North America. That
Okay.
means I will have someone 19 sitting in my office asking about how to have a career at Facebook, and he's
Hmm.
already been employed there for 4 months.
Okay.
Do you see why that's different from the 19-year-olds that would be at other institutions who might want to work at Facebook? I'm dealing with someone who has been there for 4 months, and the next 4 months he's going to go to Apple,
Okay.
and he's understand how those two organizations will be different.
Hmm.
Do you see why that gives gave my students much better questions to ask? Oh, by the way, Alex, they made me work harder too,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Well, no, because I couldn't give like routine answers you would give to an inexperienced 19-year-old, because
True.
a
True.
19-year-old looking across the desk at me was not inexperienced, having had already one or two very excellent job opportunities. And of course, these are, many of the students in my office have had these rich experiences. So, for example, my students, former students, work all through the merchant banks in New York. Why? The co-op system got them in there.
Okay.
And so they'll be talking about their experiences with iconic U.S. financial institutions.
Right.
They will discuss this while the financial crisis of '08 is underway.
Right. Right.
They will
Right.
discuss this while the financial crisis at the end of the 2000s, in 99, 98, 99, when the internet boom went bust for a short period of time.
Hmm.
They're in the midst of all of these things. So they have a richness of experiences extraordinary, and that helped me understand what would make great careers
Right.
and
Right.
what is essential elements, if you can get past the excuses and your personal ghosts.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Cool. So, I mean, both your TEDx talk and the book, they speak about fears, excuses, things that keep people from getting great careers. Just in a nutshell, would you, how does one confront one's fears? How does one confront the excuses one gives to not succeed?
Well, those are two issues because excuses are different from fears. With
Okay.
with excuses, I ask people to examine them carefully. The whole book is about being thoughtful. I'm a
Hmm.
fan of being thoughtful. So maybe that part of me is professorial. I am not embarrassed to say to anyone, young or old, be thoughtful about what you're doing.
Hmm.
So if you make an excuse. Don't do it casually. If you think you're too old, examine why you think you're too old. Examine whether you really have excluded yourself as much as you think you have. Examine the reality of the situation, not your glib assumption that you can to do something. For
Hmm.
instance, I speak in the TED video and also in the book about whether you can have a great career and a great family at the same time. My argument is yes, and there are reasons why I will say yes. But
Okay.
if you're using your child as an excuse not to pursue your dreams, I ask you to notice that you're doing it.
Okay.
Secondly, examine it and see exactly what it is, why you believe you can't combine a great career and a great family life. For instance, one of the mythologies, if you examine it carefully, is the only way to have a great career is to work 18 hours a day, 6.5 days of the week.
Hmm.
That's bogus. Large number of my students have, by their definition, that's the only definition that counts, great careers, and they're not workaholics. They have
Hmm.
time for family. They make time. Now, there's a whole bunch of strategies we discuss about how you
Right.
will be so valuable to your employer, they will not ask you to work 18 hours a day. The guys who work 18 hours a day are the ones that are the commodity workers. By definition, that's not what we're recommending here.
Right.
So if you think the only way you can have a great career is by working like a dog, fine, go work like a dog, and you are going to neglect your children. You don't have to have a great career. So we talk about why that is the case. We talk about how people do have great careers. It is about thoughtful examination of the excuses. Fears are a little different.
Okay.
That's what fears. Fears are different. First, we're not trying to eliminate fear. I wouldn't eliminate fear if I could. Fear keeps us safe. It's good for a child to be afraid of the busy traffic on a street. It's good for us to fear things. We live in a dangerous world. So I don't want fearless people. We'll have more wreckage than we have already.
Right.
What I want you to do is understand fears, not face them down. I don't know what that means. I
Mm-hmm.
mean understand them, and once you understand, we can become less fearful. So we need to be sensitive to our fears. The one thing we can't do, Alex, is let them paralyze us. At
Mm.
least that's my argument. Because then you, in order to not have any harm done to you, you do nothing. Well, that's
Right.
hardly going to be a helpful way to proceed through life. And I have asked everyone, myself included, what do you fear most? The thing you fear most should override the other fears. The
Mm.
thing you should fear most is wasting your talent. The thing you should fear most is the path not taken that is the path you should have. What you should fear most is being 78 and saying to yourself, if only I had.
Mm.
You don't want to have to say, if only I had. You don't want second thoughts that you are on the fourth best alternative and it's now too late to change.
Right.
So like I when I come from a limited farm environment. I was a shy kid. I had limited social experience. I live in the bush. In fact, I live in the bush in Canada, which is really the bush.
Okay.
And so I didn't have a lot of social experience. So being around a lot of people, I was just naturally shy. I didn't talk. You might have noticed, Alex, I've gotten over my shyness, by the
Oh
way.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, it was, but I also wanted to teach. You can't be shy in a teacher. So, I was more afraid of not being successful in the classroom or being afraid to go into the classroom or being a bad teacher in the classroom. I was more afraid of those things than the fact that people would laugh at me.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, well, if they laugh at me, I'm just going to, tough it out. But I really want to be a good teacher and I can't be shy.
Right. Okay.
But it was work. There was effort there. There was effort. I'm not, nothing in the book says it's easy, by the way. You're looking for a book about easy, go buy Get Rich Quick.
Right.
Or go to a casino and just, bet on roulette wheel.
All right. Okay. All right. I got that. Okay. So I just like to ask about something a concept that you brought up. It's the concept of the great sampling. What is this
Yes.
all about?
Well, I have many people who arrive in my office persuaded that they should find their passion. They understand the importance of it, so that's a good thing. And they are now committed. But then they begin by saying to me, they don't know what their passion is. And I say, well, okay, that's an obstacle. So what are you doing to find out what your passion is? And the answer is usually very little. They may
Okay.
talk to their friends. They may just, but basically, it's a kind of random looking around, hoping their passion will find them. It's like
Okay.
standing on the street corner, waiting that the love of your life will suddenly rush into your arms and say, let us live together for the rest of our life. It is our destiny. Well, fine.
Right.
That may work in movies. It does not really work in real life for either people or passion in an idea.
Hmm.
So we talk about the fact that unlike someone like myself who trips into my passion because I'm made to go to school. I
Right.
would have gone if I'd had a choice, but I didn't. And then I discovered I knew I was going to teach by the time I was in grade one.
Mm-hmm.
I found everything about schools fascinating, including the fact that my teachers were dreadful and I
Right.
could do it better. I
Right.
was an obnoxious little child, by the way. But but I understand why you could be 20 or 40 and still not have found your passion. How many things are there to be passionate about on the planet? I don't know if you were looking at subjects. What, 2 million, 3 million? Who knows? There's a
Uh,
huge number of things you could be interested in. Many people have such a narrow experience that they work within this narrow range. Their passion may lay well out of the range. They tell me don't know what their passion is. I say sample the knowledge of the world. You can't read everything, so you
okay.
sample it. You
Okay.
do not know where your passion is, because you can't rely on this like dumb tripping into it like I did. So
Right.
if you haven't found it accidentally by the time you're 20, then you start sampling the knowledge of humanity. And I mean sample it. You can't read it exhaustively because you'll never get finished. You'll be dead before you finish your reading.
Right.
So how do you logically deal with a huge mass of possibilities? Because that's what you're dealing with. On
Right.
one hand, it's wonderful. Right now, 2016, a young person or a person reorienting their career has a wider range of choices open to them in any time in past history. That's wonderful, right? The
Right.
chance that you would find something perfect for you is greater now than it was even 10 years ago.
Right.
The downside of that is, of course, there's such a large number of choices, it's almost unmanageable. Well,
Hmm.
there's only one way to manage a big data set. Ask any statistician. You sample it.
Hmm.
You can't go through it exhaustively, you'll kill yourself.
Right.
But you can sample. And the book talks about how you can sample methodically. You sample and you sample. In the beginning, you're just sampling. So resist the temptation to read too much. Read a little here, read a little there. Start with where you have at least a flicker of interest, but move outward in a gigantic, like, outward spiral where you are just, moving away from where you started, always looking for treasure, which is something so interesting you can't stand it, but you still keep reading. The more information you have in your head, the more likely you will find the thing that is your destiny.
Hmm.
Isn't that just logical? Like, it seems to me blindingly logical that the bigger your sample and the more careful you do it, because you want it broad based, not random. You
Right.
want it careful,
Right.
thoughtful. Now, the book talks about some technical things that you can do to make sure you're in different subjects.
Yep.
Don't get captured by just what you start with. That's what's wrong. I mean, you can't. For example, if you're trying to use many websites, they will capture you because they offer you information based on your past choices. When you're sampling, that is the reverse of what you do, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want your information narrowed, you want it broadened.
Yep.
So you've got to be careful that you're not being served by a recommender engine, which is narrowing your focus rather
Hmm.
than widening it. So this means you actively lean against this. There are a huge range of resources available, but you have to work to get the range in your sample
Hmm.
and recognize it's a sample. Only later will you go back and read in depth
Hmm.
to confirm that, yes, of all the things that fascinated me in the 37 subjects I read about, these two,
Right.
these two look like the winners. And now I will read in depth for these two and pick one. Or
Hmm.
possibly, if I'm very clever, combine the two of them.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. So, Larry, let's say you came across this person who's just about ready to think about pursuing a career. You know, this person could be a high schooler or a college student, like your students, or maybe even someone who's had some experience, already had some experience in the job market, but his career is not so good. And you have only enough time to tell that person one thing about achieving a great career. What would be that one thing you would tell him or her, and why would you say it?
Okay, the first thing I would say is you live in a world which you live in a world against the culture of which you are going to have to lean. You
Hmm.
live in a world that is going to tell you to settle. Settle for second best, third best, fourth best. If you're going to have a great career, you must lean against that culture. Unless you can liberate yourself from this culture which says, a job is okay, that the best jobs are okay,
Hmm.
that for most people work is to be endured, and you live on the weekend. If you cannot liberate yourself from those assumptions, you are lost.
Hmm.
That's the first thing you have to do.
Okay.
And then I would use a lot more words because it's hard for me to only use a few words, Alex, as you may have noticed.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I got that. I got that. So that's a pretty good takeaway right there, actually.
Well,
Okay.
again,
Go ahead.
it's true. It is it not? It is really true.
Hmm.
The reason I have so much effort, and the reasons I have to put into this, and the reason so many people struggle is because the world does not encourage you to have a great career. It may rhetorically, but in fact, it does everything it can to make you settle.
Mm, right. Okay. Cool. All right. Interesting. That's definitely something, a new insight for me. Definitely. So, Larry, authors who write nonfiction books, they sometimes go on a journey as they do so. Like before they started the book, they thought one way about something, and then after they did it, they thought another way. Has working on this book done something like that for you?
Oh, yes, it has. In some ways, I'm going to be honest, Alex. I'm not going to give you a politically correct answer. As I
Go
worked
right ahead.
through the book, and I revisited all of these examples, which means that I keep meticulous records, by the way, so I record my conversations, by the way. I mean,
Right.
I write down the conversation. I don't literally record it. So I have a log of all the conversations I've had for decades. And as I reviewed those, trying to find good examples and, obviously talk to former students about their insights in particular for the book, it became clearer and clearer to me that there really is a basic way to do it, and there's a basic way that works.
Hmm.
And if you don't do it, it won't work. You're simply relying on luck.
Right.
And in that sense, the more I worked at this, the more I became convinced that the experiences of my students are reliable,
Hmm.
they are consistent. The things that work for all of them work for new students, right?
Right.
So in that sense, I became comfortable that this is appropriate guidance.
Hmm.
I take career very seriously. I feel I have a heavy responsibility when talking to anyone about their life's work.
Right.
So I don't want to say anything that isn't reliable.
Right.
And I am persuaded, however, that you can use this guidance and you could 50 years forward, it will still be good career guidance. I say that not because I think I'm a genius, because what I'm doing is drawing on the experience of thousands of people who in wildly different markets, under
Hmm.
wildly different economic conditions, have all had great careers.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to just let people learn through other people's experiences.
Hmm.
And I feel comfortable, having written the book,
Hmm.
that
Oh.
it is showing a dependable way to a great career.
Ah, fantastic. It sounds like your book is going to be around for quite some time. I mean, for so long as there are going to be jobs, people are going to look for the kind of things that you offer in your book.
Well, I hope so.
All right, cool. So, is what is it, Larry, that you would like for people to take away from No Fears, No Excuses?
I would like people to first imagine what the best life would be for them. Just imagine it. Think about it. Define it. And then get out of your own shadow and go do it. But you got to first know what your destination is.
Right.
Got to define it thoughtfully. And once you have your destination in place, take action.
Right.
There's going to be obstacles. For sure, there are going to be obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you'll resourcefully maneuver around them.
Hmm.
Not whine about them. Say, okay, there's an obstacle here. I'm not marketing myself very well. Okay, I'm going to redouble that. Or I'm marketing myself really well, but I have actually nothing interesting to say to anyone about my
Okay.
passion. So I better
Okay.
get some new ideas here. So, different issues for different people in different circumstances, but there will be obstacles. The book gives some guidance on how to overcome a variety of obstacles that can be easily anticipated. But it is really very basic. Define your destination. Make a plan to get from where you are to where you want to go. And be prepared to maneuver around the obstacles that will inevitably occur, some of which a plan will help you maneuver around.
Hmm. All right. Cool. Cool. Got that.
Basic stuff, old virtues.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
grandmother would understand this.
True. And they seem to be timeless ones as well.
They seem to me to be.
Okay. Cool. So, Larry, is there anything else, other topics that you may want to explore as an author in the future?
Um, you should not ask someone who is like so busy from coping with the book he's written.
Okay.
I have given no thought to this matter,
Okay. All right.
Alex,
Okay.
at all. That's the truth.
Okay. No problem. No problem. I got that totally. So, are there any last words of wisdom in this last minute or so that you would like to share to inspire our listeners?
I don't know if they're words of wisdom,
Hmm.
but I would like people to imagine what it feels like to have a great career.
Hmm.
I think many people don't pursue great careers because they've never either tasted how sweet it can be, even momentarily,
Right.
or they can't imagine what it's like to make no distinction between Monday through Sunday.
Hmm.
As you get up every day and you're going to have a great day, you like the weekends because you will do weekend type things,
Right.
but you don't live for the weekend.
Right.
And when Monday morning comes along, you think, yo, Monday, I wonder what new adventure I will have before the day is over.
Right.
That's what I would like people to be shooting for.
Right. Okay. Cool. Cool. That's fantastic. Okay. So, in closing, the book is No Fears, No Excuses: What You Need to Do to Have a Great Career. The author is our guest, Larry Smith, and you can find his book on Amazon.com. So, Larry, wish we could talk some more, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being on Author Story. It's very instructive.
My pleasure.
Cool. And to our audience, if you'd like to follow our author interviews on YouTube, great. Go on, click on the subscribe button. And if you'd like, go ahead and buy the book right now by going to the Amazon link in the video description below. So long for now, everyone. I'll be back next time on Author Story with another inspiring author.